Rice is one of the most popular foods in the world, but getting it wrong can be a serious threat to your health. In this video, we'll cover 10 fatal rice consumption mistakes that can lead to serious illnesses and even death. These mistakes can cause cancer, heart attack, kidney failure, and serious liver and gastrointestinal problems. From improper preparation to dangerous combinations with other foods, you'll be shocked at how risky what you thought was healthy can be. Watch the video to the end to learn how to protect yourself and your loved ones from these dangers. This video will be extremely informative and helpful. So, if you want to become a master of your health, click like, and let's get started. Mistake 10. Using rice as your main source of nutrition. This can lead to kidney disease, liver disease, heart disease, and cancer. When rice becomes a staple food in the diet, the body is deficient in key nutrients it needs to function properly. Rice is a carbohydrate-rich food, but it is virtually devoid of proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals. Constant consumption of rice in large quantities leads to deficiencies in vital micronutrients, which can trigger serious kidney and liver disease, impair heart function, and even increase the risk of cancer. One of the problems with rice as a dietary staple is nutritional imbalance, which is particularly prevalent in Asian countries such as the Philippines, India, and Bangladesh. According to the World Health Organization, more than 20% of adults in these regions are deficient in vitamins and minerals, which increases the risk of developing chronic diseases. Regular overeating of rice can lead to kidney problems and fatty liver disease, increasing the burden on the organs and impairing their function. In addition, the Philippines is one of the countries where rice is consumed in huge quantities on a daily basis. The people of this country eat rice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, often considering it a staple in their diet. Countries like the Philippines, where rice makes up a large part of the diet, have high rates of nutrient deficiency diseases. According to the World Health Organization, about 50% of the population in the Philippines suffers from anemia caused by a lack of iron and B vitamins. Such a diet weakens the body, increasing the risk of heart, kidney, and even liver disease. A study conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that people who regularly consume rice as a primary food source have a 30% higher risk of developing metabolic diseases and cardiovascular problems. During the study, which included more than 100,000 participants, scientists found that the lack of nutrients due to a monotonous diet provokes metabolic disorders, fat accumulation in the liver, and the development of insulin resistance. This leads to damage to internal organs and increases the risk of cancer. An example of a victim of this fatal error is Roberto Carlos Lopez, a 45-year-old resident of the Philippines. Since childhood, he was used to eating rice at every meal, in the morning with fish, at lunch with meat, and at dinner with vegetables or even just soy sauce. Roberto believed that rice provided his body with energy, not giving any importance to the lack of other nutrients. After years of this diet, he began to develop kidney problems and the first symptoms of diabetes. Doctors diagnosed him with chronic kidney damage and high blood sugar. They concluded that his condition was the result of years of an unbalanced diet dominated by rice. To avoid such problems, you need to diversify your diet. Instead of making rice the basis of every meal, it is important to include vegetables, proteins, sources of fats, and other carbohydrates in the diet. Consuming greens, legumes, meat, and fish will help replenish missing vitamins and minerals, prevent deficiencies, and promote health. Mistake 9. Regular consumption of instant or convenience rice. This can lead to vitamin and mineral deficiencies, weakened immunity, and the development of chronic diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease. Instant rice, so popular among people who value time and convenience, is a real nutritional trap. In the process of its processing, the grains lose most of their useful substances. Such rice contains a minimal amount of B vitamins, fiber, and minerals like magnesium and iron. In addition, preservatives, flavor enhancers, and stabilizers added to convenience foods make it even more dangerous to health. Deficiencies in vital micronutrients weaken the immune system, leave the body vulnerable to infections, and contribute to the development of chronic diseases, including type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. For example, uncooked rice is often found in ready-made frozen meals, Asian rice noodle soups, and other quick lunches found in supermarkets. According to the World Health Organization, about 40% of adults in developed countries consume convenience foods on a regular basis, leading to long-term nutrient deficiencies. In the U.S., about 30 million people suffer from various forms of vitamin and mineral deficiencies associated with processed foods each year, and this figure continues to rise. This in turn significantly increases the risk of developing chronic diseases. A study conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that people who regularly consumed processed rice were 20% more likely to suffer from type 2 diabetes and 25% more likely to experience cardiovascular problems compared to those who consumed whole grain products. Researchers noted that regular consumption of fast rice leads to persistent spikes in blood sugar levels, which over time leads to decreased insulin sensitivity and eventually diabetes. In addition, decreased levels of magnesium and B vitamins lead to poor heart and nervous system function, weakened immunity, and poor overall body health. An example of a person who has suffered from this mistake is Michael Johnson, a 39-year-old resident of Los Angeles, USA. Michael, like many others, led an active lifestyle, worked in marketing, and often bought ready meals with rice for lunch. He thought it was a quick and convenient way to eat, not realizing that the rice in such products was virtually devoid of nutrients. After a few years, Michael began to notice that he was often sick, felt tired all the time, and suffered from high blood sugar levels. After a visit to the doctor, he was diagnosed with prediabetes and was also found to have a serious deficiency of B vitamins. Doctors explained that his health problems arose due to the prolonged consumption of processed foods containing few useful substances. To avoid such problems, it is recommended to give up convenience foods and instead include in the diet whole rice, such as brown or wild rice, which are rich in fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Even if you have a busy schedule, you can cook your own rice, which only takes 20 to 30 minutes, but is much more beneficial for your body. Supplement your meals with fresh vegetables, herbs, and protein foods, such as eggs, fish, or legumes, to boost your immune system, improve your overall health, and prevent chronic diseases. Mistake 8. Consuming rice treated with chemical additives. This can lead to liver disease, kidney disease, and increase the risk of cancer. Many manufacturers treat rice with chemical additives to increase its shelf life and improve its appearance. These substances are often not mentioned on the packaging, but their effects on the body can be extremely dangerous. Some of these additives are preservatives, which prevent rice from spoiling, and bleaching agents, used to give the product a more attractive white color. However, regular consumption of such rice leads to the accumulation of harmful chemicals in the body, which negatively affects the functioning of the liver and kidneys. The liver, as the organ responsible for eliminating toxins, eventually begins to suffer from overload. Consumption of such rice can increase the risk of liver cirrhosis, kidney failure, and even cancer. According to the World Health Organization, each year, about 10% of people worldwide experience liver disease related to toxins accumulated through diet. More than 5% of all cases of kidney failure can also be linked to chemical additives in processed foods, including rice. Such foods are most dangerous in countries with high rates of processed rice consumption. In some Asian countries, up to 40% of the population regularly buys rice containing chemical additives. A study conducted by the American Cancer Society found that people who regularly consume processed rice are 15% more likely to experience liver and kidney disease. Scientists noted that many chemicals used to process rice disrupt normal cell function, which leads to cell mutation and can cause the development of cancer. Such rice products are especially dangerous for people with weakened immune systems or those who already have liver and kidney disease. An example of a person who has suffered from eating processed rice is David Harris, a 55-year-old resident of New York, USA. David, unaware of the dangers, had been buying rice from the supermarket for several years, believing it to be a healthy product for his diet. Over time, he began to notice a decline in his health, chronic fatigue and pain in his right side. After going to the doctor, he was diagnosed with the early stages of cirrhosis of the liver, which came as a surprise to David because he did not abuse alcohol. Doctors attributed his disease to the long-term consumption of rice treated with chemical additives, which accumulated in the body and caused damage to the liver cells. To avoid such problems, you should choose rice carefully, favoring products labeled organic or no chemical processing. These products do not contain harmful additives and ensure health safety. It is also important to rinse rice thoroughly before cooking to remove possible chemical residues. Incorporating a variety of cereals, vegetables, and protein foods into your diet will help reduce your consumption of processed rice and lower your risk of developing serious diseases. Mistake 7. Combining rice with fatty and fried foods. This can lead to heart disease, stroke, and atherosclerosis. Rice combined with fatty and fried foods is a popular combination in the world's cuisines that can hide dangerous health consequences. Dishes such as fried rice with meat, rice with fatty sauces or butter, rice with bacon or sausage may all be tasty, but carry hidden dangers. The fatty and fried foods combine with the carbohydrates in rice to create a dangerous mixture that leads to rapid deposition of cholesterol in the blood vessels. This causes the formation of atherosclerotic plaques that narrow the arteries and greatly increase the risk of heart attack or stroke. According to the World Health Organization, about 18 million people worldwide die from cardiovascular disease every year, accounting for nearly 31% of all deaths. About 75% of these cases are due to poor diet, which includes fatty and fried foods in large quantities. A study conducted by the American Heart Association found that regular consumption of fried and fatty foods combined with carbohydrates, including rice, increases the risk of atherosclerosis and cardiovascular disease by 40%. The study involved more than 100,000 people who regularly ate meals with fried meat, oil, and rice. The results showed that such a diet accelerates the process of clogging arteries, impairs blood circulation, and leads to an increase in body weight, which only exacerbates the strain on the heart. An example of a person who suffered from this harmful combination is Richard Miller, a 50-year-old resident of Miami, USA. For a long time, Richard considered rice with fried chicken meat and gravy as a perfect lunch. This habitual diet was convenient, quick, and tasty for him. However, after a few years of this diet, he began to experience chest pain and dizziness. After going to the doctor, he was diagnosed with atherosclerosis and high cholesterol. Doctors stated that his condition was caused by years of eating fatty and fried foods with carbohydrates such as rice. As a result, Richard had to undergo treatment and drastically change his eating habits to avoid a heart attack. To avoid such consequences, it is advisable to limit the intake of fried and fatty foods combined with rice. Instead, you can cook rice with lean sources of protein, such as steamed chicken breast or baked fish. Instead of oily sauces, you can use fresh vegetables and herbs to help balance your diet and reduce the strain on your heart. Mistake 6. Consuming large portions of rice daily. This can lead to obesity, fatty liver disease, and cardiovascular disease. Rice, especially white and purified rice, is a major source of carbohydrates for many people around the world. However, excessive consumption of it can lead to serious health consequences. In large quantities, rice causes nutritional imbalances where carbohydrates begin to dominate over proteins, fats, and fiber. Overeating rice, especially without combining it with other healthy foods, overloads the pancreas, causing blood sugar levels to spike. This eventually leads to insulin resistance, increases body weight, and provokes obesity. In addition, excess carbohydrates can negatively affect the liver, causing fatty liver disease when fat begins to accumulate in this organ, leading to inflammation and impaired function. According to the World Health Organization, more than 13% of the world's adult population is obese, and about 422 million people have diabetes, which is closely linked to excess carbohydrate consumption. A study conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that people who eat large portions of white rice daily are 27% more likely to suffer from metabolic disorders such as type 2 diabetes and obesity. In a study that spanned more than 10 years and included about 200,000 people, scientists found that excess carbohydrates from rice leads to poor metabolism and causes fat accumulation in the liver, which ultimately increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. The main conclusion of the study is the need to balance carbohydrates with proteins and fats to maintain health. An example of a person facing this problem is Mark James, a 45-year-old resident of Texas, USA. For many years, Mark regularly ate large portions of rice every day, believing that it gave him energy for work and exercise. However, over time, he noticed that he was rapidly gaining weight, had breathing problems, and chronic fatigue. After a medical examination, it was discovered that Mark had developed fatty liver disease as well as a pre-diabetic condition. Doctors noted that his problems were caused by excessive consumption of white rice without proper balance in his diet. To avoid such consequences, it is important to control the portions of rice and combine it with protein-rich foods, such as fish, chicken, or legumes, as well as vegetables that contain fiber. You should also consider replacing white rice with brown or wild rice, which contain more fiber and vitamins that help keep blood sugar levels stable and improve metabolism. Regular exercise and a balanced diet will help avoid fat accumulation in the liver and reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. Mistake 5. Not rinsing rice enough. This can lead to inflammation in the body and poor gut health. Many people don't pay enough attention to thoroughly rinsing rice before cooking it, which can have serious health consequences. Rice, especially white and processed rice, contains pesticide residues, toxins, and excessive amounts of starch on its surface. These substances can not only degrade the texture and flavor of a dish, but can also negatively affect intestinal function. Excess starch contributes to abdominal bloating and slows down the digestive process, which can lead to inflammation in the gastrointestinal tract. According to the World Health Organization, about 10% of all intestinal illnesses can be linked to poor diet quality and toxins in processed foods, including rice. These illnesses cause about 2 million deaths worldwide each year. A study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that eating rice that has been inadequately washed increases the risk of inflammatory bowel disease by 15%. Scientists noted that pesticide residues and toxins on the surface of rice accumulate in the body when consumed frequently, which can lead to long-term digestive disorders and cause inflammation in the gastrointestinal tract, as well as increase the risk of gastritis and other diseases. An example of a person who suffered from this mistake is Jane Thompson, a 38-year-old resident of Seattle, USA. Jane often cooked rice without paying enough attention to rinsing it, believing that this procedure was not essential. After a few months, she started suffering from digestive problems, abdominal bloating, and intestinal pain. After a visit to a gastroenterologist and an examination, it turned out that Jane had developed chronic gastritis caused by the accumulation of toxins and starches in her diet, which were left on unwashed rice. To avoid such problems, it is important to rinse rice at least 3 to 4 times under running water before cooking it. This simple procedure helps to remove pesticides, toxins, and excess starch, which will make the rice safer and healthier for the body. You should also favor organic varieties of rice that are grown without the use of chemicals, which will greatly reduce the risk of toxin buildup. Mistake 4. Consuming rice with a high glycemic index. This can lead to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and heart attacks. White purified rice is one of the most common foods in the world, but its high glycemic index makes it potentially dangerous to your health. The glycemic index, GI, is a measure of how quickly a food raises blood sugar levels. Rice with a high GI causes glucose spikes, leading to an overloaded pancreas and increased insulin release. Over time, this can lead to insulin resistance and then type 2 diabetes. White rice also contributes to weight gain, increasing the risk of obesity, which is linked to cardiovascular disease, including heart attacks and strokes. According to the World Health Organization, about 422 million people worldwide suffer from diabetes, and that number continues to grow. Diabetes causes 1.5 million deaths each year. A study conducted by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health found that frequent consumption of white rice increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 27%. The study involved more than 350,000 people from various countries, and the results clearly showed that foods with a high glycemic index, such as white rice, contribute to a significant increase in blood sugar levels. The researchers emphasized that to reduce the risk of diabetes and other chronic diseases, it is important to reduce the consumption of high GI foods and replace them with healthier alternatives, such as brown rice or whole grains. An example of a person who suffered from this mistake is Thomas Wilson, a 47-year-old resident of Florida, USA. Thomas liked to eat white rice almost every day without realizing its harmful effects on his body. Over time, he began to notice constant fatigue, drastic mood swings, and weight gain. When Thomas went to the doctor, he was diagnosed with insulin resistance and a pre-diabetic condition. Doctors explained to him that his diet, which included large amounts of white rice, was the main cause of his health problems. To avoid such consequences, it is recommended to replace white rice with brown or wild rice, which contain more fiber and have a lower glycemic index. These types of rice help to keep blood sugar levels stable, preventing glucose spikes. It's also important to control portions and combine rice with proteins and vegetables to slow carbohydrate absorption and reduce stress on the pancreas. Mistake 3. Storing cooked rice at room temperature for a long time. This can lead to bacterial infections, liver, and kidney problems. Left at room temperature, cooked rice is a breeding ground for the growth of dangerous bacteria such as Bacillus cereus. This bacteria can cause severe food poisoning with symptoms such as vomiting, diarrhea, and sharp abdominal pain. Rice that is left on the table or stove for more than 2 hours becomes especially dangerous. When the temperature of the food drops to room temperature, the bacteria begin to actively multiply. Rice dishes such as sushi, pilafs, rice casseroles, or leftover side dishes can become a source of infection. According to the World Health Organization, about 420,000 people die from food poisoning worldwide each year, and more than 30% of those cases are linked to bacterial infections caused by improper food storage. A study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that rice left at room temperature for more than 2 hours increases the risk of bacterial contamination by 90%. Scientists found that reheating food does not destroy all the toxins produced by bacteria. This means that even if rice is reheated, the risk of poisoning remains. The results of the study emphasize the importance of properly storing cooked foods, especially rice, to avoid serious health consequences. An example of a person who suffered from this mistake is Michael Brown, a 34-year-old from Texas, USA. Michael often left cooked rice in the kitchen during the day, planning to eat it later. He did not pay much attention to the fact that the rice had been standing at room temperature for several hours. On one such day, Michael began experiencing sharp abdominal pain, vomiting, and a high fever. After hospitalization, doctors diagnosed him with severe bacterial poisoning caused by the bacterium Bacillus cereus. This led to temporary liver and kidney dysfunction, and it took Michael several weeks to recover. To avoid a similar problem, it is recommended that rice be put away in the refrigerator immediately after cooking, if it is not to be consumed within 2 hours. The storage temperature should be below 5 degrees Celsius to slow down the growth of bacteria. You should also avoid reheating the rice more than once. If you leave the rice at room temperature for longer than 2 hours, it is better to throw it away to avoid putting your health at risk. Mistake 2. Insufficient heat treatment of rice. This can lead to food poisoning, gastrointestinal damage, and fatalities. Insufficient heat treatment of rice is a serious health hazard. Rice that has been cooked at low temperatures or not cooked long enough can contain dangerous bacteria such as Bacillus cereus. This bacteria, especially active in rice that has not been properly heat treated, produces toxins that do not break down even when reheated. Symptoms of Bacillus cereus poisoning range from mild diarrhea to severe gastrointestinal damage, such as severe cramping, vomiting, and dehydration. In the most severe cases, such poisonings can be fatal, especially among immunocompromised people. According to the World Health Organization, food poisoning caused by inadequately heat-treated foods kills about 420,000 people each year. A study conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that rice that was not cooked at the proper temperature was 70% more likely to be contaminated with bacteria such as Bacillus cereus. Researchers found that short-term heat treatment of rice does not destroy all pathogens, making the food dangerous to eat. The researchers emphasized the importance of cooking rice for long periods of time at temperatures of at least 100 degrees Celsius to ensure that the bacteria and their toxins are completely destroyed. An example of a person who suffered from this mistake is Stephen Carter, a 29-year-old from California, USA. Stephen loved to cook rice, but he was often in a hurry and did not cook it long enough, leaving it slightly undercooked. One day, after such a meal, he began to experience severe nausea, vomiting, and sharp abdominal pain. Stephen was hospitalized with a diagnosis of acute food poisoning caused by the bacterium Bacillus cereus, which had survived due to inadequate heat treatment of the rice. Doctors warned him that such poisoning could have caused serious consequences to his health if not diagnosed in time. To avoid such situations, it is important to always cook rice until fully cooked. It is recommended to cook it on high heat for at least 15 to 20 minutes to ensure that all bacteria are destroyed. When using a multi-cooker or steamer, you should make sure that the rice is cooked at a temperature above 100 degrees Celsius. You should never rush the cooking process, as insufficient heat treatment can jeopardize your health. Finally, the most important item on our list. Mistake 1. Eating rice high in arsenic and aflatoxins. This can lead to cancer, cardiovascular disease, and liver and kidney damage. Arsenic is one of the most dangerous toxins that can accumulate in rice, especially in varieties grown in areas with contaminated soil or water. This natural poison, once in the body, can accumulate in the tissues, leading to serious health consequences. Regular consumption of arsenic-containing rice significantly increases the risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, and damage to internal organs such as the liver and kidneys. Aflatoxins, produced by mold fungi, can contaminate rice when stored improperly and are potent carcinogens that are particularly dangerous to the liver. According to the World Health Organization, aflatoxin contamination in foods causes about 100,000 deaths each year, mostly due to liver cancer. There are certain types of rice products that are prone to arsenic accumulation, such as white and brown rice grown in contaminated regions. About 50% of the rice consumed in the U.S. contains arsenic levels above acceptable levels. People who eat rice or rice-based products, rice cereal, rice cakes, etc., daily are at high risk of arsenic accumulation in the body, which over time can trigger cancer and cardiovascular disease. A study conducted by the Environmental Working Group found that long-term consumption of arsenic-containing rice increases the risk of cancer by 20% and also increases the likelihood of cardiovascular disease by 16%. The scientists found that even minimal daily consumption of arsenic-contaminated foods can lead to the accumulation of the toxin in the body and cause chronic diseases. The researchers emphasized the importance of regular monitoring of arsenic content in food and choosing rice grown in regions with minimal contamination. An example of a person who suffered from this mistake is Elizabeth Wilkinson, a 53-year-old resident of California, USA. For many years, Elizabeth believed that rice was a healthy and dietary product, so she regularly ate it in large quantities. However, after a few years, she started experiencing liver problems as well as sudden pressure swings. After a medical examination, doctors found that she had elevated levels of arsenic in her body and diagnosed the initial stage of liver cancer. Doctors concluded that her condition was due to regular consumption of rice, grown in areas with high levels of soil contamination. To avoid such problems, you should choose organic rice or rice grown in regions with low levels of pollution. It is also recommended to wash rice several times before cooking and soak it in water for a few hours to reduce arsenic levels. Alternatively, you can also eat other grains such as quinoa or buckwheat, which are not prone to accumulating toxins.